Hi, I'm Helen Van Wyk, and welcome to my studio. Yes, today is all about the focal point, a factor of composition. Odd that I'm going to teach composition. I can't teach composition. I don't know what you want to paint, but I can alert you to certain factors, such as the focal point and some of the other things that maybe will improve your picture. We can get all our elements of good composition from nature. Nature is in balance, and balance is a factor. Now, this is a picture I did on one of my shows. Remember, I have the pot over here, off the center. You can never put the focal point in the middle. I'm going to put my hand right in the middle of this canvas. So if it's in the middle, if your focal point's in the middle, you can't add anything, because if you do add anything, it's going to flop over. For instance, in a portrait, if you put the head in the middle, you put the body in, all of a sudden the canvas is going to be unbalanced. So we put the head here and hold it up with the body. Or I put my hand behind this little thing, and I have my hand here, and you see it's off balance, but now it's being balanced by these daisies. So, yes, nature is in balance. We have night and day, light and dark, and many other things in balance. And so why don't I start painting and tell you about the other factors of composition rather than just talk. I'll talk and paint at the same time. I set up this still life as an example of composition to bring out a few factors. Another thing about composition is unity, in that your picture looks as though it enjoys itself. Nothing seems to be out of whack. I don't know whether how you feel about it, but I think that tankard of brushes with books is a theme that is acceptable. And you'll notice that I have put the star, the focal point, which is this with the brushes, not in the middle. I have it here. Yes, if I have to arrange it now in the middle. So I can do that by putting these outer lines in again. I always do that. Remember, I've done that in other shows. And this gives me a chance to get the placement. Now, the placement is the beginning of a good composition, because you are regulating the composition in relation to the size of the canvas. And so now this tankard is going to end up here, and the book is going to end up here, and then the tankard is going to be focused on better by having a red book in back of it. Build up the intrigue, and that's what the added books over here is going to do to this, right in through here. And so we have balance. We want the picture to be balanced. We want the picture to be well placed in relation to the composition. The unity seems that seems to make sense. And the next thing is that we don't want our compositions to be boring. And the way to bore a composition is to make a constant repeat of the same size all the time. And so even though you have to have some kind of cadence of unity, the unity should have variety of sizes. So this is a smaller book, and this is a bigger book. And then these end up to be a whole mass shape. Not three, but they have all joined together and become one. So I talk about these things because I found this particular arrangement intriguing to me. I can't tell you what you are going to be intrigued with. I always say, I can teach the craft, but I can't teach the art of it. I can show you how you can do what you want to do. It's much like I can lead a horse to drink, but I can't make him water. You may think I got that wrong, but I got it right. So this is the composition. Let me get a little bit of a drawing in here to see how this looks in size. And then these are all going to shoot out of here in a way that I think would make you look right there. The best way to judge a composition is to step back and see how it looks from a distance. It's not in the middle. That's the first thing you want to ask yourself. I hope you don't mind that I took the liberty of doing some work without you, but I felt that this was not that relevant to composition. But what I'm going to do now is, I am not going to put this tankard in the middle of this box, because that would be an even division, and even divisions, as I said, sets up a cadence of monotony. So I'm going to take the liberty, even though I may see it in the middle, I'm going to take the liberty to move it over. And I'm going to move it over to here. Well, yes, I always have to use the workhorse of painting. Take that into consideration, and that the tankard is not pewter. No, it's a dark tone. I don't have pewter on my palette. It's a dark tone in relation to the red book behind it. It's almost fits in with the excitement of painting to try to get to painting your focal point rather quickly. Meaning I'm going to be painting this area to see how it looks. Then I can make the rest of my picture, which is the supporting surroundings or situation for the focal point, always doing it in relation to it. It's like deciding on the dress you're going to wear and then putting your accessories in relation to it. You don't put your jewelry on first. Or do we? Now those are the cast shadows from the tankard, from all the brushes. And I'd like to paint this picture rather casually. It looks like, to me, just a corner of a studio with some neglected brushes that have served their time. And so maybe the way I'll handle my paint will have that same attitude. Because composition isn't only in the arrangement, but the composition is the way you paint it. That red against red is going to give me a problem, but that's better, darker. And one here. I think I did talk to you about you can't kiss on canvas. I would never let one of these brushes just hit the edge of that book, because making sure that the brush goes beyond it puts it more in front. If I had it right against it, it would look as though it's resting on it instead of in front of it, maybe. The way your picture is going to look on the flat surface is more important than the way it looks over there. Now I'm going to put a shadow on this book here. And I'm going to put the all-important highlight on the tankard. Yes, greatly affected. It's pewter, and so it's greatly affected by its surroundings. It's getting a lot of red coming from the book around it. I'm going to just put some colors down on these other books, because I want to show you something that would probably work well in this situation. Every time you paint, make it a new experience, a new composition. The intrigue of painting is gone if we constantly just paint the same picture over and over again. I mean, just a little variation here and there. We get ideas, we see it in terms of a picture, and then we must adjust our basic knowledge. That's what's so nice about basic knowledge. You can adjust it according to the situation that you're in. So I want to lay all this in with paint so that I can actually paint the books, develop their characteristic with a palette knife. Because a palette knife makes straight lines so nicely, I think it's a good instrument to use. I'm not committed to a brush all the time. I'm not committed to doing something the same way all the time. Neither are you. Don't emulate. Adjust. Figure it out. What's the best way to deal with the situation at hand? So we do what we have to do to make it work. So let me put all this paint down so I can show you how I work with a palette knife to try to have the way the paint looks have a bearing on the picture, have its contribution to the composition. Because after all this work is embedded in a general overall composition, and a picture doesn't even have to be titled. People give it a title. They'll say, oh, it's a picture of books, because they're impressed with the books and the tankard. I'm going to finish this picture off with a palette knife. It's going to add a textural quality to the paint, which might be an asset to the overall composition. And really, palette knife work is always thick, and so it really should be where the light strikes. Very hard to, it's not a good idea to put thick dark paint on. So with a big gob of white in here and with some blue, phthalo blue, I don't know how that's going to look. I'm going to have to try it out first. Always realize that you've got to see how it looks. Oh, wow, that's exciting. I like it. Now, the reason I'm using a palette knife for this is that it seems as though it's the implement that is conducive to making these sharp or light edges or lines. I'm somewhat of a academician about the use of oil paint, though. I don't believe it should be put on extremely thick. I'm going to show you the technique of the old masters, not next week, maybe the following week. In contrast to working with a palette knife, as I'm doing now, next time we meet, I'm going to focus in on brushwork, how to blend. Yes, that needs a little bit of a cutting down. And now that balances that. Constantly in balance. So your eye always looks there. There is a wonderful still life painter of the past, Jardin. If you get a chance to see any of his still lifes, you'll see that he had beautiful unified compositions. And he did that by making all these things overlap each other. So instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements, the 6 elements ended up to be 1. Clever. No one cares how much you suffer. So, I'm not saying take the easy way out, but it's hard enough to paint the ordinary, let alone the extraordinary. And I think that nature itself is extraordinary enough. And we are impressed and put down our pictorial impression. And if we go to nature for some of nature's dictates, and one of nature's dictates is balance. One of nature's dictates is unity. Another one is variety. We shadow. The divine with our honest attempts. Not great, but honest. A lifetime isn't long enough for you to paint the amount of pictures that you have to paint to, well, feel as though you, by George, I think I've got it. No. And in my lessons with you, or my sessions with you, when you're visiting me here at my easel, I have to single out an element and focus on it. And so learning about the focal point can contribute to the way you play your ideas. So let me take a look at this from a distance again. So many people ask me about how do you finish a picture. You don't finish a picture. The picture's finished look is dependent upon each stage. And so the composition is the first. So this needs all your attention. And then you have to really keep your interest and your patience and your abilities at a certain plane right from the composition stage to the end. Yes, of course, there's always correction as you go. But you can't just mess around and then say, now I'm going to make a wonderful picture. So I'm just going to show you little things that I could think that would help this, that are within the realm of possible correction. I just wish that I'd taken more time with you to do each thing so carefully. I have a lesson for that too, by the way. It's not this one. I don't know what color to make that book. Maybe yellow. Pull that color over here so it doesn't look like it's the only yellow in the picture. Not the same yellow. I don't mind that. One way to make a focal point is to have one thing, and then the rest not the same, the same thing. I've seen so many compositions ruined by having too much in it. We have to know that the focal point is always your star. And all things that you do to the picture relate to that star. Don't overtake it. Because then, if you overtake it, you have 2 stars. Designing the composition first and working on the focal area first gives you a chance to subject everything else to its appearance. I feel as though this background is too smooth for the roughness of the whole picture, so I would go back to that and fix it up, activate it like the rest of the picture. Maybe I'll just slip that in there, at least, and then slosh it over there a bit. And now that I think about it, of course I would love to have a chance more to do those cast shadows. I think it would be nice to show these cast shadows from these brushes also sticking out from here, especially from that one. And add a brush in here. Ooh, not that color. Well, they say that the professional is just somebody who knows when to stop. Wise. So I hope you enjoyed your visit with me today. Next week, I'm going to paint a black cooking pot with red onions and teach you all about brushwork, interesting brushwork on the onions and on the background. Or maybe I'll just teach you how to make soup.